Okay, Caleb, what problems were due today?
Foundational 15, chapter 5, and the Excel problem.
Chapter 5, what?
Foundational
15. If I brought up 4, 15, and the foundation problem.
Yeah, it's the foundational 15 and the Excel problem.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
I believe I brought up the wrong chapter then. I brought up 4. Still chapter 4. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Let me take roll first. Got new rosters if you're here or not. Okay. Caitlin Bailey, she usually live streams. Oh, you're here today. Yeah. Saw some new faces. Well, sort of new faces in this place. Cody. One computer, Caleb Cox here, Georgie. That his backpack. Gary French, not here. Blake Good, is that his?
No, it's not.
All right. Okay, Brianna, not here. Okay, Gina Hightower, not here. Adam, Mason, he's in another place. Samuel, he'll probably make minutes. Mark's here. Anna, okay, that's made today. Maya, Pedersen, not here. Haley Finn's not here. Zachary, Parker, not here. Gregory, Wardell, not here yet. Peter Sims. Ben. Okay. Okay, Stephen, how do you pronounce your first name? Is Bayer? Bayer. Okay, Antonio's not here. All right. It's more absent in here, so that's okay. That's why we live stream it. And hopefully all of you are out there that are live streaming. Note that we're going to have a test on Tuesday, an in-class test. Why am I calling it on Tuesday? Midterm is next week. I have to have the grades in by the 8th of October. So to do that, I have to give you a test on Tuesday, which I haven't even made yet, but I'll do that, okay? Anyhow, on Tuesday, your test will be on what? Chapters 4 and 5. Now, chapter 4 pretty much was, that was not job order. Chapter 4 was equivalent units, cost of production summary. So you will need to do a cost of production summary. You need to find equivalent units. Now, I can throw that at you both ways, but I'll tell you, I'll give you the weighted average. I'll give you the weighted average, equivalent units, and you find unit cost, cost to account for, and then you reconcile it. See where your dollars went, whether it's an engine inventory, beginning inventory, or transferred out. So we did a couple, 3 of those in that chapter, and we did a couple, 3 with the FIFO in that chapter. So you will have that production summary. And if it's the whole summary, it'll count heavy. Now, I'll have you to calculate equivalent units both ways, FIFO and weighted average. Now, that's what I can promise you from chapter 4. Now, chapter 5, I'm going to throw everything at you I can on break even, contribution margin ratio. All right. And in chapter 5, we'll get to the problems in a minute. Right. Know all of your break-even format on page 210 to 11. Now, margin of safety, I have not mentioned yet on page 213 of your textbook. Margin of safety. All right. You could have these formulas written down. Anything you want to have written down formula-wise, you can. If you have to write down a formula for break-even, you're welcome to do that and have it to help you, okay? But any formula you can have written down. Will that help you, Mark?
Yeah.
You write the formulas down using on the test.
The what?
You write the formulas down using on the test.
Everybody can that didn't ask me. Yes, Mark, you can have the formulas written down. All right. Come in, Maya. All right. Now, on this test, if you pass this test with a C or better, no matter what you made on the first test, I won't turn in a bad midterm grade. If that makes sense to you. Mark, what did you tell me to press on this thing on this notepad to get a clean page? You say Control 6?
Control N, add.
Control N?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How'd you learn that?
The class we take for Word.
Okay, so you're using OneNote and Word?
Well, it works for any program mostly.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that. So always learn something great. If I can learn something from a student, it's welcome. Okay. All right. Of course, we've had to keep up with computers over the years. We know that. I was telling my accounting principles class, I've probably lost a few out of that class, and that's okay. Probably should lose a few out of here that's not showing up. They won't pass any kind of test. Hopefully they do. But I saw my little second grade grandson over the weekend, and he says, Papa, I'd like to get fired from school. Okay. Now, we used to call it expelled, But who wants to expel, say, bottom line, you don't like the teacher very much, we starting to like her a little better, so forth, but you just can't go change it of a new teacher, so you all don't have to be fired from this class. You don't have to be expelled from this class. Some of you have already done what you're going to do. You're not showing up, you're quitting, or you're giving up, or you're not even wanting to get a good start, okay? So hopefully you don't quit. Hopefully you show up Tuesday and beat anybody in this class, okay? But I don't think you will. I think the good race horses are sitting here today, okay? And the other race horses that are coming in second and third are probably not here. Hopefully I'm wrong. So show me, prove it to me Tuesday I'm wrong. All right, some of these formulas, margin of safety, I want to scribble this down for you. Look at page 213 in your textbook. It's probably also on target profit. But now, you're welcome to have, as I said, break even is your main formula. And if we do break even in units, we were going with fixed cost over sale price minus variable cost. Now, if we want to do break even in dollars, we would go with fixed cost over the sales price percent. We'd have to do this in a percent minus the variable cost as percent. Now we know that anytime you take the sales price minus variable cost, and no matter which way here, it's contribution margin. All right, now that's illustrated to you on page 212, but we're wanting to look at page 213. All right, on page 213, we got a margin of safety. Now here you take a margin of safety percentage. All right, look at the little chart on page 213. Sales minus break-even sales is the margin of safety. Sales minus break-even sales is a margin of safety. It's not net income now. Sales minus variable cost minus fixed cost is net income. Here, our sales may be $100,000, but break-even sales was $80,000. So our margin of safety is $20,000, okay? But looking at the formula, and we know about the target profit and so forth. So looking at page 213, yellow boxes at the bottom or the yellow lines, margin of safety in dollars is total budgeted sales minus break-even sales. So here is margin of safety in dollars. Sales minus break-even sales is margin of safety in dollars. But then to look at the formula, margin of safety percentage, a percent is equal to, and that is margin of safety in dollars over total budgeted sales in dollars. All right, see if that makes sense. That's what you see on that page. The margin of safety percent, you're taking the dollars margin of safety divided by the sales. So that's easy. That's dividing sales here into margin of safety. Same formula. If you look at this one and this one, you're looking at the same thing. All right, so just look at it in a different picture. So at the bottom of the page, at the bottom of the page in your book, so sales is what? 100,000. All right, let's put 100,000 down here. And then margin of safety in dollars is 12,500. All right, if you divide 100,000 into 12.5, what do you get? It's on that page. What do you get? 12.5%, don't you? All right, is bigger better or is smaller better?
Bigger would be better.
Probably bigger would be better. Margin of safety of 50% would be great. Now, when we get to a chapter on ratios, some of those ratios, the smaller the better, but some bigger the better, okay? Anyway, you could have that formula written down. Okay? I thought there was one more formula, but I do not see. Yeah, operating leverage. Okay, you might want to have this formula written down. Operating leverage. All right. Degree of operating leverage is equal to contribution margin over net income. Degree of operating leverage is equal to contribution margin over net income. Now, leverage in a finance class might be the degree of financing with stock versus bonds. That might be the term leverage in finance class. But leverage here is degree of operating leverage. Now, if we look here, it says on page 216, here, this Bob side form has a contribution margin of 40,000. And they have a net operating income of 10. So their degree of operating leverage is 4. All right, now here is Stilling form, which contribution margin is 70. Their net income is 10. And their degree of operation is 7. Which one's the best? Which one? Contribution margin divided by net income. All right, let's look at this another way. What if net income were 20,000 up here? What would the degree of operating leverage be? If we change that to a 20, then we'd change that to a 2. All right, in that case, it seems like smaller is better than, isn't it? What if your contribution margin actually was equal to your net income? Degree of operating leverage would be 1. And that's probably the best you could get. 1 would be the best you could get. So probably smaller the better. Because here, for example, if net income was 35, your operating leverage would be 2. Okay, so degree of operating leverage. We'll practice some of those in a moment. You can have that formula written down. All right, sales mix and break-even analysis. I want you to look at page 220. Since I'm calling a test at this short a time, I will not give you a break-even for multiple products, okay? But I could. You could get this today, but I won't throw that on you. But we are going to look at it, and we're going to practice some problems with all these new concepts. All right, but look at exhibit 5.4, page 320, or 220, sorry. And I want you to look at their statement. You have monument, Monument DVD. And then you have parts DVD. So you're selling two products. You've got sales of both, and you've got variable expense of both. Contribution margin for monuments is 5,000, and contribution margin for parts is 40,000. Now, break even. Look at what you do for break even. You take your fixed expenses, which is total fixed expenses, 27. That's all you know. You don't have it by separating. And you take the overall contribution margin. That is sales for all of them minus variable expenses for all of them gives you contribution margin of all of them. That's 45%. Now that's also 100% minus 55. If you want to calculate break even in dollars, which is 60,000. Okay, so there's really nothing new there. All right, you still got break even, fixed cost. It's your total contribution margin. That's all that formula would be, or overall or total. So that could easily be done. All right. Now I have asked you for the last few days to be working some exercises. I don't think I've assigned any specific problems have in the chapter. Just 1 through 5, be looking at those. All right. And of course, 1 through 5 is probably going to be some of your most simplest stuff. All right. But I did ask you number 5 to do. We got to get on now and look at some problems. I asked you to do the Excel problem in chapter 5, right? All right. Now, what page was that Excel problem on?
224.
224. Okay, applying Excel. And also the foundation problem. Now, the foundation problem, what is the contribution margin? Now, this foundation problem, you're asked to break even in dollars. You're asked for the margin of safety. You're asked for degree of operating leverage. If you can do that foundation problem, you can do the test. Easy, okay? So how many of you have that foundation problem done? All right, I'm going to give it to Tuesday for everybody to have it finished, okay? I think that's good practice for the test. So that's the foundation problem. But now back to the Excel problem. All right, on the Excel problem, check your worksheet by changing the fixed expenses to 270 and enter the following data from a different company: sales, selling price, variable expenses fixed. And what is the margin of safety? Use the degree of operating leverage. Confirm the calculation. So the part that we hadn't mentioned is on both of these problems, okay? So now on this Excel problem, did you have to go in and put in another company's data up here, the 20,000 units? I believe that's what it said, isn't it, or is it?
On problem number 2, it's a different company.
Okay, part 2, yeah, part 2. But part 1, now, how did the worksheet change when you change fixed expenses? All right. Now, the selling price was the same, right? Was your contribution margin the same, 15?
Yes.
Okay, now I didn't look at the first part of it to see. Okay, let's go back. Now, your fixed expenses here was 240. All right. So I can't go back and compare because I don't have a split screen. But what did you change here? Just your fixed expenses?
Yes.
Now, change of fixed expenses, would that change your contribution margin ratio?
No.
It wouldn't, would it? Would it change your variable expense ratio? You see, selling price is 100, 60 into 45 is 75%, 45 into 50. Well, wait a minute. Let me get this straight. 60 into 45 is 75%. 60 into 15 is 25%. Okay. Were those the same ratios as original?
Yes.
Shouldn't have changed, shouldn't it? Now, when we get down here, break even in sales,
You did change your units by 2,000.
it has to because your fixed cost is bigger. It's just wanting you to see that you can change any of these variables and everything changes, okay? But most things change. All right, break even in dollars. If that went up 2,000, that'd have changed too, wouldn't it? 2,000 times $60, would that be up $12,000 or am I off there somewhere? Okay, how about before? What was break even in dollars?
96,000.
96? Okay, the difference, 96 or 960?
960, I'm sorry.
Okay, 960. All right, here, 120. So 2,000 units. What is 2,000 units multiplied by $60? It's 2,000 units multiplied by $60.
120.
Is that going to be 120? Okay, so that's the difference. Is the 2,000 units times the sales price is the difference in your net break even in dollars. All right, so margin of safety, 120. Where'd that come from? All right, margin of safety percent. Now, where'd the 120 come from here? Margin of safety.
Sales minus break even.
All right, you're done break even. So sales, that's right here, right? Bad that I can't write on this thing. That's just a question I just asked. Sales, break even sales was 960,000, right? 980 or 960, yeah. Mark, you told me that a minute ago. So sales minus break even sales. Wait a minute, break even in units. I don't know if I compared the right thing or not to get this 120. Was that 960,000 break even?
Would you like to?
No, I can flip back to it. Was that 960,000 break even before?
Yes.
Okay. That's just for one break even and another. That's before we change the fixed expenses. All right. But anyway, it's 120. We'll move on. Margin of safety percent. We're dividing 120 by what to get 10%? What are we dividing 120 by to get 10%? You just looked at that formula.
Was it the break even in dollar sales?
All right, 120, and you divide that by
No.
1,080,000, we have to go back to the original. Hope I don't get you lost on it.
It's the margin of safety in dollars.
All right. What were the What was that formula? I just gave it to you in the book. What was the formula?
The margin of safety in dollars over the sales in dollars.
All right, margin of safety in dollars, 120. Now this is sales at break even. I don't know what that will give you. I guess I'm looking, is there some other sales besides break even sales?
You have to compute your sales by getting your selling price times your unit sales. Your units.
Selling price times what, units?
Yes.
I know, but that's still at break even, isn't it? Oh no, that's 60 times.
That's your actual sales.
All right, if that's actual, then that's, is that 1,200,000? Is that 1,200,000? If it's 1,200,000 minus your 120, now that will leave your break even here of 1,080,000, won't it? So it does work back together. So that's 10%. So sales is 1,200,000, total expenses, 60 times 45 times 20 is 300. 270 is net operating income is 30,000. Now, degree of operating leverage. How do we calculate that degree of operating leverage?
Contribution margin over net income.
All right. Contribution margin was how much? 300,000. And net income is 30. What's 30 into 300?
10.
All right. Can't mark on TV, but I'm trying to show you that's margin of safety. Okay, now that was the Excel problem, giving you the ingredients of break even, margin of safety, and operating leverage. Now that's what the foundation problem is doing. It's even changing things. So if you can do these two problems, you're set for the test. Now on the test, I don't know if I'll give it to you on multiple choice or not. I've got to make that this evening, try to have it ready by Tuesday. But I may give you some of these break evens and contribution margins, and margin of safety and operating leverage in multiple choice questions. Okay. But remember chapter 4, the whole production summary. Okay. All right. This chapter also gets a factory and should even get a retailer. What do I do to break even? You don't want to work to break even. You got your own business. You want a profit. You want a desired income. You want to pay yourself something. Okay. But you need to have an idea of what break even is. A lot of banks, their philosophy is if you have a small business plan, you're lucky to break even the first year. And then you should start making a profit. But it'd be great to make a profit from day one, wouldn't it? Okay, now, those 5 exercises that I asked you to work, these are simple, almost too easy probably to fool with. But anyway, number 1 on page 227, what would be the revised net operating income per month if the sales volume increased by 100 units? Okay, we're changing things, but first I got to mention something. Have you all read these things that are posted on all the doors? Okay, we're supposed to mention that to you. Some of the instructors are going to try to do quick 8-week classes. And up here we have Mr. Imel's going to do QuickBooks, which is accounting information system. And there's international business, operation management, e-commerce, principles of management, human resources. Now, you can enroll in those courses. They start, around the 1st of October. And they're quick, all online. You're never in class. Now, like Georgie, if he came to me as his advisor and wanted to add one of these classes, I'd go look at it. Because he's already got 24 credits. Okay? Only if you're short on credits and need those classes in your program would sensible advisor approve them, right? You got room to take them and you can put them in your program. And it's double quick. 8 weeks is double halftime. That's why it's double quick of a 16-week term. It's all online. Never sat in the class. I don't know about the test. That's up to the instructor. Some of them will have you come and take the test live. Okay. But did want to mention those. I'm sure some of you have seen them. I don't know how well they're advertised. It's a good thing if they go. Like in January, I've encouraged Mr. Arnold to do accounting principles, start accounting principles over an 8-week term instead of doing it in the summer. I didn't want to do it, so I asked him what he wanted to do. Okay. All right, hopefully you worked on some of these problems. And I will take this Excel problem and foundation problem up on Tuesday, the day of the test. All right, now this little exercise might have been longer than I thought. All right, what would be the revised net operating income per month if sales volume increased by 100? All right, if you increase sales volume by 100, that'd be 10,100 units, wouldn't it? Times your $35. Your variable expenses, 10,100 units by your $20. Contribution margin is 15. But now your fixed costs is staying the same, right? So your net operating income is 16.5. And original operating income was 15. So what they're trying to show you here is you are having your net profit is 100 units times your contribution margin, because your fixed expenses are taken care of no matter what level you operate at. Now that's why in America we have economics of scale. What economics of scale means, mass production. If you can produce something mass production, it's cheaper to the consumer. How would you like to buy a hand-built automobile? Is the Rolls Royce still pretty much handmade, built? You know, probably a cheaper would be $250,000. Okay. So mass production, we cover our fixed cost. And the more units we produce, the more profit we make, which is actually the contribution margin. All right. Number 2, we had a revised operating income. We went down to what? 9,500 units. Well, that's that contribution margin, $15 times the, was it 100 units or 9,900? Okay, not 95, still 100 units. That made a big difference in your income from 16 to 13. Increase 100 or go down 100, okay? You are losing because you still got to pay the same fixed cost. If you went down to 9,000, it would be disaster. You still pay the same fixed cost. Now, number 3 of this question, the revised net operating income would be what? How many units are you selling here? 9,000? That's where it becomes pretty much disaster there. You're selling 9,000 units. All right, still gotta cover your fixed costs. That's all you're doing. You're breaking even. So economics of scale, the more you can produce. That's why Henry Ford did the assembly line, mass production. Right? That got it all started way back in 1900. You wouldn't want to buy your clothing if they were handmade. They'd be too expensive. Okay. All right. So you're going to have fixed costs no matter what you sell. Y'all got fixed costs up here for tuition, right? No matter what your grade. Your cost is the same. You can make a D or you can make an A. Okay. It's not hardly related like this, but it's the same theory. Okay. Get more for your payment. Okay, number 2. They distribute a single product whose selling price is 24, whose variable cost is 18. Their fixed expenses are. Prepare a cost volume profit graph. You don't have to do that. So all I want you to do is calculate break even manual. Now, how many has that done on problem 2? All right, the rest of you take just a minute and calculate break even. That's all it takes is a minute. Calculate break even on problem 2. Don't use a graph. $24 minus 18 is 6. Your fixed expenses are 24,000. 6 into 24,000 would be what? 40,000 units or how much?
4,000.
4,000. That's all we wanted was 4,000 right here. Okay. That's all the answer I wanted was 4,000. Okay. All right. Number 3. This enterprise distributes a single product whose selling price is 16 and whose variable cost is 11. The fixed expenses are 16. Number 1, forget about. Number 2, estimate the company's break even and unit sales, not the graph. Do that equation form. If you do that equation form, what's your answer?
3,200.
All right, 2,200?
3,000.
All right, 3,200. Okay, all we're doing there is taking $16 minus 11 leaves what? 5? 5 into 16,000 gives you 3,200. Okay. Now, folks, you should not miss break even. Now, see, if we were looking at it on a graph, it's right here. Now, wait a minute. Where is it? I don't have that graph. Oh, showing fixed expense. I don't know how they're getting that graph here, 3,200. Yeah, that makes sense. Dollars up to vertical and units horizontal. Okay. Did they mention 3,200 here? They did, right? Okay, number 4. What is the company's contribution margin? What is the company's change in contribution net income if it can increase total sales by 1,000? Okay, contribution margin. Sales were 200,000, total variable expenses were 110. So your contribution margin is how much in dollars?
120.
How much?
120.
For your variable cost is 120, your contribution margin is 80,000.
Would be 80.
Oh, yeah, 80,000.
All right, simply 80. Now in percents, somebody divide 200,000 into 120. What's 200,000 into 120? If we needed to percent, that's probably 60, right? All right, if you divided 200,000 into 80, that would probably be 40. All right, so if we needed the percents, we'd have them. But now, what is B part of number 4? What is the estimated change in the company's net operating income if it can increase sales by 1,000? Okay, we're going to increase sales by $1,000. How many units would that be? I divide 50,000 units into $200,000. What is your selling price? $4. So how many units will we have to sell to make $1,000 in sales? 4 into 1,000 is 4 into 1,000 is what? 250? I think I'm on the right track. We'll see. We didn't have to go that far though. We could have went my way and went the long way and multiplied the new sales and so on, new variable cost. But if we know the contribution margin, which we did calculate that, I told you that's 60, this is 40, all right? So 40% of the $1,000 will give you $400 income because your fixed cost is already covered, right? And if we had 250 units times 4, that gives you $1,000. Now, $1,000, if 60% of that $1,000 is variable cost, that's 600, isn't it? Again, 600 going a long way. 600 from 1,000 will give you 400 more. Okay, that's a way to verify. And the 250 units we calculated, or I had to calculate at the beginning. All right, that was number 4 I asked you to try. So these first 5 exercises gave you break even in most situations. Changes in variable costs, fixed costs, selling price, and volume. Now this gives you all the other changes. All right, number 5, you start out with your selling price of 90, variable expense of 63, your contribution margin of 27. All right, required, how much will net operating income increase per month if the monthly advertising budget increased by 5,000, but monthly sales increased by 9? The advertising budget is usually a fixed. The advertising budget is usually fixed. And let's see something real quick. Anyway, I went down to Pigeon Forge this weekend, and I didn't have to been to Nation Stampede. All right, my granddaughter, before she got out of college at UT, modeled for this stampede, and they have her on all the flyers, posters. When I was in Branson, Missouri, they had them also. My granddaughter was in that flyer about 4 times. But when I went to Pigeon Forge and came out this weekend, now they have my granddaughter. If you ever see it, she's the blonde on the billboard going in Pigeon Forge. So they put her on the billboard. They paid her a fat fee at the time, and they're getting a lot of miles out of that. I guess one picture, I guess, and she don't get any extra commissions. Okay, that's one price. They use it everywhere. Okey doke. Number 5, let's just glance at it. We're running out of time today, and I don't like to do that. The following table shows the effect of the proposed change in a monthly advertising budget. Sales went up by 9,000. Verbal expenses went up by 2,300. Well, no, wait a minute. They went up by 6,300. And your fixed expenses, now why did they go up? Because of your advertising budget, right? And then net operating income would drop to 2,300 minus. Okay. But now we practice changing some of those. There's 2 or 3 different ways you can get at these answers. But now the second part of that one, the $2 increase in variable expenses will cause the unit contribution margin to decrease from 27 to 25. Now that's an increase in variable. All right, the following impact on the net operating income would be 2,000 units, 55,000. And then, of course, present total contribution margin. It looks like a change in total contribution margin. I would advise you to work that out from the beginning if you have to. Sales minus contribution, sales minus variable expenses equal contribution margin. All right, now we're going to take a few minutes and practice. We're not going to do the multiple product. Now, I want you to real quick do exercise 13. Exercise 13. Only do number 1. Exercise 13, number 1. Okay, Monique, got an answer yet on number 13? Anybody got an answer? Number 13. I guess that's it. Changes in selling price, sales volume, verbal costs, and total fixed costs. We're just changing something. What is the revised net operating income if unit sales increased by 15%? Well, unit sales before were how much? 20,000? Now you're going to increase that 20,000 by how much? What's 15% of 20,000? What's 15% of 20,000? Is that 3,000?
I think so.
Now you're going to sell 23,000, right? All right, let me bring that up real quick. Well, of course. All right, 3,000. Okay. That'd be 23,000, or you can multiply by 115%. So our total sales would be 345. Variable cost is still 9. 9 times 23,000, 138. Fixed is the same, so your income is 68. And what was the question? What is the revised net operating income if net sales are? The revised net operating income is 68,000 or $18,000 profit just by selling 3,000 more units. Your fixed expenses were already covered, correct? All right. Now for homework, you already had the foundation Excel assigned, but I want you to do 22 and 23 for homework. Now this is the hand-in Tuesday. Those homework problems on 22 and 3 will review you for degree of operating leverage, margin of safety, which we haven't covered well yet. Okay, so please do those two problems. The answers are on Moodle, chapter 5. You'll find them on Moodle. 22 and 23, chapter 5. Okay, and some of you are doing the foundation problem for extra credit. Some of you are doing all the Excel problems for extra credit. Okay, so have a good weekend, study. I don't want to fire you. Okay, and I'll see you Tuesday.